Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's an evening in Moscow. It's not even a podmoskovny вечер. It's in the song. It's actually a Moscow evening. This is живая рыба up here. I don't really like this, but let's look at it anyway. And unfortunately, they're actually living carp and sazan, whatever sazan is, another type of carp. Sudak, dorado, that can't be alive now. Sudak, that's living carp. Som. Well, they may be alive or nearly alive. The carp are definitely still breathing. There's shtuka, which is pike. They're dead, eyes are sunken. So I think of those, only the carp are really alive. But I just want to show you, I don't like that. I think that's unnecessarily cruel. But some people want to have their fish really fresh. Some people actually buy the living fish and put it in their own bath, so they can put fresh tap water through it, get the fish actually fully cleared out of the river system. Personally, I don't go bundle on river fish anyway. I prefer sea fish, and there's a reason for it. I think I probably said this before. Hope I don't get tiresome to people that watch my stuff a lot, but I suppose I don't see itself and that it's going to be completely boring. But there's no parasite which can live on human beings, which has made the jump from saltwater to freshwater system. You see, saltwater is 2.7 parts per million, per mille, means per thousand. 2.7 parts per thousand, whatever that means, is of salinity. Okay, and blood plasma, or the plasma of the human body, and in fact everything which is higher up the Linnaean tree than the lamprey, so sharks as well, just about, depending which shark you get, but everything from bony fishes onwards is at 0.9 parts per thousand of salinity. It's plasma, which means that those of them that live in the sea have got to osmoregulate, and so they develop livers to do this job. One liver each. I'm not trying to be like Jonah Takalua. I was going to give my mother one of my livers. It's really sad. You don't know whether to laugh or cry if you watch that sketch with Jonah Takalua offering or saying that he wanted to give his dying mother one of his livers. But if you don't know it, look it up, because it's a really humour and pathos combined, really, in a beautiful way. But if you don't know Summer Heights High, then get the whole series and watch it. It's highly recommended. It is hugely recommended. So basically, here I am again on Leningradsky area, or Leningradsky Prospect is going to be that way, but this is actually, Novoslobodska, but going up a different way. Never walked up here before. I thought I'd take the camera with me. I've got some things I just want to kind of have a chat with you guys, ladies and gentlemen, mainly gentlemen, if my statistics are reliable. But that's okay. I'm not here to chat you up, am I? So, and basically, yeah, that's why I don't like, obviously, I don't like freshwater fish because they've got the blood plasma, okay, the same as ours, but so have saltwater fish, The difference is the saltwater fish, the parasites are things which are lower down the scale, you see, than the bony fish or some of the cartilaginous fishes that have got the same blood plasma level, and therefore all of those parasites, they have a blood plasma level at, if they're in the sea, 2.7 parts per million. If they're in the in the rivers, then they've got it at river levels, which are usually lower than 0.9. They're usually something like 0. Well, what could they be? 0.3. It's already pretty salty, isn't it? Too salty for most rivers, but in the estuary areas you're going to get that. In fact, gradually estuaries are going to become tidal, and you're going to get higher than blood plasma level. Often you don't have full salinity around a river area until you're quite far out into the ocean, which is why pike live, for example, quite even far from the shoreline in the Baltic Sea, because you've got relatively low salinity, even though it's a sea, going quite far out. So people can catch really monster pike up well into the Baltic. After basically they're living in the outward stream of the Elbe, and then later on of the Varta and Odra river systems, which make the Baltic in the area around northern Germany a little bit less saline, and so therefore you're going to get a mixture of more resistant to salt river fish like the pike and certain trouts, graylings, things like that, and they of course, having more space, get to the biggest proportions that you're going to see for pike in Europe, actually out there. And if you look it up, you'll see some very interesting photographs from people that specialise in fishing trips in that area. I also play, I haven't played him for a while, I don't know what happened to him, but I sometimes play backgammon with a guy who actually lives there. He runs something which works as a kind of holiday home during the summer, but it's just his own home, like in the winter, and he doesn't have anybody taking it. I mean, he's usually knee deep in snow, the guy, but I remember talking with him last year a lot about this. I haven't played the guy for a long time. I have to look him up, see how he is. I think I got to the end of a game and didn't start a new one. Sometimes you forget to start, and then afterwards you realise after a while that you haven't played one of your favourite contestants for a while. Just thought of it now, really. Anyhow, that's why I don't eat river fish, yeah, because they have on them parasites, and in them parasites, which can easily transfer through, whether it's via snails. They have various vectors, some of them vectors via water snails, but some tropical fish, they've got things in them which are actually tropical diseases which can affect us too, potentially, whereas this will not take place so easily with saltwater fish. It can't really normally take place at all. I mean, obviously, while you've got Arbroath smokies, I remember once my first wife came down from Dundee and she'd bought some Arbroath smokies as a present. By the time, we actually got them unwrapped, unfortunately flies had laid their eggs in them and they were all maggoty, which is probably not what she intended, but nevertheless it was a bit of an embarrassment for her at the time, and I hate to mention it in a sense, because of whatever embarrasses her is not going to do me an awful lot of good either, even though she's only the first one, not the ultimate one, as it were. She's the penultimate one, hopefully, but nevertheless, that we unwrapped these Arbroath smokies she brought down from Dundee, because she'd been up there seeing her friends that she used to live in Dundee at first when she came from Poland, and she brought these, unwrapped them, and they were full of maggots, which was rather upsetting for her. But it isn't what you normally expect from sea fish if they're out too long, and obviously the shop had been dishonest, or she simply hadn't taken enough precautions when she'd wrapped them up, etc. Kept them in the warm and kept them for too long. But anyway, or trusted in them being smoked would be enough. Well, smoked is enough against bacteria, not really against maggots. That's the problem. They like smoked fish as well. So, as well as we do. But maggots aren't really a parasite in human beings. If you were stuck for food and you had something that was full of maggots, but was otherwise okay, you know, like a smoked fish that was probably fairly resistant because of the levels of salt and what have you to bacteria, but had loads of maggots on it, well, my advice would be, if you haven't got anything else to eat, eat it, and eat the maggots too. But it's obviously not palatable, so we didn't eat it. So here we are, coming to an area which obviously if you asked me to draw a map, I'd be able to draw this, because obviously it's obvious that the road's going to come up here and do something and join the third ring somehow. This is the third ring, and this is it joining the third ring. But I've never been here. Oh look, durian. You don't expect that, do you, in a shop in Moscow? Durian. I know what that is now, because when I filmed it in China I didn't know what it was, and people said in the comments, maybe some of you watching now said in the comments, oh, that's durian and it stinks. Well, I don't know if it's going to be a fresh one, so it might not stink enough, might not be worth buying. And if it is a fresh one, I can only imagine in Moscow how much that would cost in comparison to what I could have bought it for in Beijing. So again, not tracksuits with Russian arrangements on. The sporting clothing at the moment is very much in fashion because of Sochi, which is about to kick off. You won't see this at the time of Sochi, I don't think, because I'm not, unless there's anything interesting happens that means that I should put it up outside the queue. I haven't even started yet to I don't know how many films I've got coming up in the series of Russian, well, the Russian vlog effectively. How far I've actually got into it so far, but so far, even the first of them I haven't put up yet. I may be already like 50 or so in, I have no idea. I can't keep track of how much I'm trying not to actually do so much filming, but sometimes I just feel like doing it. Tonight I just feel like doing it. We started with those fish. I think I covered the topic of why I prefer saltwater fish. Certainly if you're doing sushi, on no account should you ever use, and any book on sushi will tell you this, on no account should you use freshwater fish for sushi. Only saltwater fish, and then not every kind will do. There are some types of fish meat which simply don't suit sushi at all. Cod, for example, that won't give you sushi. Mackerel won't really give you sushi. Don't advise mackerel, they're scatophageous, so I don't advise mackerel. But I was coming up to what shall I do? I'll stick on this side, and I'll tell you why I'm going to stick on this side. Because I've seen a working terry mock on this side of the road when I've driven past on a taxi further up. I hope it's further, I think it's further up. Yes, it must be further up. So maybe I can grab a terry mock on my way back. Let's see if I can get the Greek one, that would be nice. Although I'm not eating pork at the moment, I'll probably pick a different one. But something will be okay. That's Sivyolovsky Vokzal, just behind there, you see. Can't see it very well. The offices of my old network's Russian firm are just behind there. Great guy actually, or my particular friend in there, Sergei Schwartzman's a great guy, but obviously I'm his competitor now, so I'm not going to recommend him to you, even though he's a great guy. So if you want something in Russia done, please come see me. I'll get it done for you, as long as it's not illegal. So so there we are. Anyhow, That's nice. So basically, why I want to have a walk tonight, that's the next topic. I think we closed the fish topic, and why we should only eat saltwater fish, especially in sushi, and why I don't go a bundle on freshwater fish. I don't like the flavour of it either, because it's too reminds me of the smell of my freshwater aquariums that I keep my own fish in, so they're a bit like pets as well. So I don't like it for that reason too. Yes, I'll eat carp seasonally at Christmas, because it's part of the seasonal fare of Eastern Europe at Christmas. And then I eat it, yes, I do. Sometimes I eat trout as well. Smoked trout I do sometimes eat. I've actually got some at home. That's pushing it. But other than that, I try to avoid the river fish. Oh, and yes, of course, the rivers are where salmon spawn, although they're really not really a river fish. But they spawn in rivers, and so a river product, you might say a river product, is salmon caviar, which I also like. Recently I've started eating a lot of capelin. Capelin, that's a small smelt from Iceland and the sea to the north of Iceland, some of which is in Russian waters. Therefore Russia makes quite a lot of capelin roe products. They call it ikra moiva. I think it's moiva, it might be moiva, but I think it's probably moiva with the stress on the first syllable. That's the capelin. And if you haven't heard of capelin, that's usually because we don't eat much of it. They catch, and bear in mind it's not a big fish. It's the main food fish of the Atlantic cod, Gadus morhua, Linnaeus 1758. It's the main food fish of the Atlantic cod, and there are literally, it's a very common fish. It eats plankton and small crustaceans, and although it has 25 centimeters in length for the female and 20 in length for the male, so it's a small fish. Yeah, I mean, you could easily keep it in an aquarium, for example, if you can keep the aquarium cold enough. That's the biggest problem with that. It likes the cold, and so for cold marine fishes, usually our problem is that room temperature is too warm for them, for things like that. So you have to actually have the opposite problem that the tropical fish keeper has when his when he's got a power cut, for example. His tanks get too cold. But if you're keeping capelin, or a lot of these, if you want to have a native marine, as we call it in England, a native marine tank, which means basically cold saltwater fish tank, and there are lots of nice things you can put in them, things like blennies and what have you, which your biggest problem is going to be keeping it cold enough. Room temperature is too warm for them, so have to find some way of cooling it down. And the ones in the, for example, London Zoo Aquarium, they're colder than some kind of an erotic thing. Well, that's not erotic, that's a wedding dress. That's kind of like the opposite of erotic, because that's kind of like the end of a person's libido when they get married, isn't it, according to the jokes? They say what they found a cure to a woman's libido, and is basically an ingredient in her own wedding cake. And that's just a Polish joke. Not a joke about Poles, this is one that has its origins, as far as I'm aware, in Poland. So, yeah. Anyway, somehow I've managed to not be able to steer my conversation with you away from fish. But the capelin is, I wanted to talk about something else, I will talk about something else, but let's just finish the capelin question. Capelin is very nice, Vitosis or something I think it's called, I can't remember exactly. I think it's also described by Linnaeus in 1758. But because obviously it was well known in Europe, especially in Scandinavia where Linnaeus came from, because it's a northern fish. And when you think about it, small fish like that, it's the main food fish for the Atlantic cod, which is much, much larger. I mean, they get up to around 1 metre, 2 metres. Do they get to 2 metres? No, probably not, but they get them over 1 metre easily. And maybe 1.5 metres in some cases. Oh look, it's ice hockey. Isn't that good? That's a Russian sport, and of course now with Sochi coming up, they're all into it. So here we go, we've got people skating around on an ice hockey rink, open air. And that's not an ice hockey rink open air all year round, I imagine. But they managed to make one of it now. Presumably that's just basically a question of having a nice flat playground and pouring water on it. Then having something which kind of smooths it off. And that's nice for them to have that. They can practice their ice hockey. So yeah, that's an advantage. However, as you can see from my relative state of undress, the open ear, the undone up scarf, it's about -1, 2, 3, something like that. Probably I'd estimate -2 at the moment, which means I'm not even getting a cold hand. I'm just holding it in an ungloved hand. If I show you there, and it's not too cold. So I'm estimating after all this time, if I just walk along comfortably like this, slight snuffliness coming up in the nose after that period of time. But that's what you'd expect in about -1, -2, or at least what I expect in -1, -2. If you're not used to it, then you're going to get that snuffly reaction even in the low plus temperatures. But once you're acclimatised, it's going to happen at that temperature. It's going to be like warm when it's above 0, unless there's a roaring wind, in which case it's still going to feel cold. But there's no apparent wind this evening, so it feels nice and warm. And so that's coming on to why I am now walking, because I've got a chance. I've just come back from Istanbul. If you've seen the Istanbul series, it's probably been uploaded around the same time as this, hopefully, if it's going to pan out the way I roughly think it will, with my uploadings and outgoings and what have you. Play outs, as I call them. That's what we call it when I watch on TV. Playing out the films that you've got the rights to play out. So I still call it play out on YouTube as well. Maybe the only person that uses that buzzword from TV. Not sure that the whole TV industry uses it, but in Viasat we used it, the term play out. And so that's kind of become part of the way I speak and think, because the way you speak is the way you think, and vice versa. And so basically this fish, the capelin, is the main food fish for the Atlantic cod, like I say. And we catch, well, we didn't used to catch that much, but then all of a sudden it became a useful fish used in fish meals, which is as in things that end up in fish fingers, but also things that end up even just in fish oils, used in various other things like glues or what have you, not necessarily even food, or which end up in cat food, things like that. So it wasn't considered much of a food fish, but the roe is what is termed a high value product. So if you can get the capelin and you find your females, usually it's as they're going down towards Iceland, they migrate to spawn in the waters to the south of Iceland, so they swim around Iceland to get there. But if you can catch them going there nice and full of roe, the females, the males, they go into the fjords, they stay there the whole time. The females go in and out. When they're coming out, they're obviously empty of roe. As they're coming in, they've got roe. So obviously if you catch too many, there's not going to be enough. But the thing about the capelin, if you compare the capelin to the cod with the terms of the roe, obviously you've got a fish, and if it's only a quarter of the length, or it's less than that of course, it's only a fifth of the length of the Atlantic cod, so it's going to be, if you take that in 3 dimensions, it's going to be a 25th, 125th, it's going to be a 125th, it's not even going to be 1% of the weight of the mass of the cod. But if anybody's eaten cod roe, which I regularly do, and eaten clara masalata, which I regularly make my own now, from pure cod roes, which are on sale here, plus cheese, like an Almetta cheese or a Philadelphia, anything like that, and maybe some tomato ketchup just added for good measure. But basically, if you make tamasalata, or if you eat tamasalata, you will know that cod roe is very, very fine. And Capelin roe, which is also turned into a kind of tamasalata, mixed with a kind of cheese sauce, frothed up nicely. Very beautiful product. If you can get the Kramoivi, buy it. Try it, it's lovely. I only discovered it myself recently here in Russia. If you can get it, try it. But you'll notice that the eggs are a little bit bigger than the cod eggs, and what they are actually is what you normally get sold to you in a Japanese restaurant in Europe as tobikko, which is flying fish roe. Tobikko is actually this masugo, which is the word that they call it for the moiva, for the Capelin roe in Japanese. They use this as a viable alternative to tobikko. They just put a red dye on it, make it look like tobikko, and you're never going to tell the difference because it actually also has the same flavour and consistency as tobikko. The only way you're going to know you've had Capelin roe masugo is because it's going to be a bit more rubbery. It's going to have a bit more of a bite to it. You're going to be able to you know, bite in through those eggshells, as it were, to get to, you know, you're going to find that they're, you know, after you've had it, you're going to be able to find them between your teeth, and you're going to be able to suck them out and then bite them, and they're going to split open under your bite, and they give you their flavour, which is not unpleasant. It's perfectly nice. It's just different to tobikko, which shouldn't be like that exactly. It's a bit like that, but not exactly that tough, and certainly nothing like cod, because you're not going to be able to bite a cod roe, an individual cod egg. You're not going to be able to bite on it usually, so it's just too fine. So this fish, the Capelin, it's giving like thousands of eggs, but the cod, as you can imagine, a much finer egg on a fish which is 100 times bigger. It's sending out millions. Every cod is sending out millions of eggs, and of course that means that very, very few of the cod babies, yeah, which start off a lot smaller, are going to make it. That's when the Capelin, of course, gets its own back, because the Capelin is unable to eat quite a few of these baby cods. So amongst the other plankton which it is growing up on. So you've got this dialectic going on between cod and Capelin there in the North Atlantic Ocean. And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That's basically what I wanted to say about it. It's an interesting, and here we come to the tirimok. I probably will turn it off for going into tirimok. If you want to see how they make a tirimok pancake, well, I filmed that before. If you can always look it up on one of my other Russian films. Don't want to keep doing the same things again and again, but basically it is there. I thought it was there, and it is there. We got to the end of the fish topic that I wanted to talk about. Basically, the Capelin, if the conditions are right, it can replenish its stocks. But as with any fish, if you fish too many, there's not going to be enough. But as long as some healthy females get through, even 10%, then it's going to expand to fulfill what's available. And sometimes the North Atlantic herring is eating the same things that they're eating. So therefore, when you've got a lot of herring, you sometimes got less Capelin, but sometimes you get a lot of both. So it doesn't necessarily just depend on the amount of herring that there is. And it's a bit of a mystery to know everything that does determine how many Capelin you get. But the amount of Capelin available, some years is just a little bit low, and some years it's amazingly high. Some years it's just like millions of them come in, yeah, millions and millions and millions of these things. I mean, some years catch has got like 1 million tons of them, yeah, And there must be, I mean, a fish like that isn't going to be a kilogram per thing, so we're talking that there are billions of them caught. There are billions or milliards of these fish caught, and that's just a fraction of what there actually is to catch. So it's thankfully one of the fish which fishing hasn't been, causing too much detriment to, and so therefore people are eating it more and more because it's more available and it matures quite quickly, 3 to 4 years, unlike some fish which take a lot longer to achieve their full size. So there we are, a little bit of a talk about the Capelin. I'm at Cherimock. I'm going to turn this off, turn it back on again as I continue the walk afterwards. I had 2.2 when I was leaving the office. Right now it's 4.4, so that's doubled it up. I've now gone 2.2 just on this walk. And yeah, that was the idea. That's basically the idea, is to walk. I was checked out by my colleagues. I said, do you need me back at the office? I said, no, you can work from home. So I'm going to walk home now. And then that gives me the chance to walk, because it's plus. It's not plus, it's minus, but almost feels like it's plus. No need to use those opportunities in the Russian winter. But it's the 5th of February. Normally it'd be colder than this. So I have to use it while it's available. I have to use it. Hence, I checked out at 6:15 when we finished. I checked out of the group going back to the office. I said I'll work at home. They said fine. So when I get back home I'll catch up. But in the meantime I need to use opportunities to walk for the good of my health. Otherwise I'll remain a fatso all my life. You don't want that.